All right, perfect. So welcome again, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. We have dedicated about an hour, maybe a little bit shorter, just to go over some of the questions that I have for Bluebird Sim, and then also to go over any of your questions. Again, you can post them in the stage chat or in the link I put in the stage chat, which is part of the forums here on Discord. We'll be trying to go through some of these questions. So again, welcome everybody. Hopefully everybody can hear me well and good. But with that said, I'm going to go ahead and bring in Bluebird Simulations into the chat. So give me, there we go.
Hi, Coleman. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Welcome, Sherwin. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. It's a Sunday. Back to work tomorrow, but I'm doing great otherwise.
Good. Well, thanks again for joining. Super excited to be speaking with you today. So guys, this is Sherwin, founder of Bluebird Simulations. Super excited to be speaking with you, Sherwin, today. Like I was saying a little bit earlier, the Boeing 757 is it's an airplane that I've always loved, and I felt that is very unique. I knew a couple of pilots, 757 pilots that worked for American Airlines when American had a big fleet of them, and they were telling me that it's just truly a phenomenal airplane. It has a lot of horsepower. It's a little rocket, and it's a really amazing plane to fly in real life. And I always loved it. Its performance, just everything about it really kind of intrigued me. So super excited to be speaking with you today. But before we get started, Sherwin, is there anything that you want to mention before we get started?
Well, I want to first say apologies if you guys hear any background noises. My daughter's playing in the background, so I'll try to keep it quiet. But beyond that, I'm very excited. Thank you for having me on to kind of talk about the project. And I know you have a bunch of questions to ask, and I'm going to do my best to answer the questions. And if there's anything that I don't know, I'll try to get an answer. And there's certain things, of course, I can't talk about yet, but exciting times ahead. And I agree with you with the 757. The two main pilots that we have that are helping us, they both say the same thing. It's like the sports car of the airliner world. It's such a blast to fly, and I wish I could have the real world experience to fly the plane. I've heard a lot of great things about it, but it's a beautiful aircraft. It's truly amazing that we're working on it, and we're really excited to eventually get this thing out in flight sim for everybody else to try out.
Awesome. Well, we're excited too, and I think we have a bunch of excited people as well, because I know that a lot of people love the 757. So, quick disclaimer as well: I do have 3 boys, so you might hear some background noise as well. Sherwin and I are kind of in a similar boat with kids. So it's a Sunday at home here. But yeah, anyway, so let's go ahead and get started. I have some questions I'm going to be asking Sherwin and really kind of make this conversational. And again, we'll be going through some of your questions that's posted in the stage chat or in the forums topic. But let's get started. And Sherwin, I'd love to I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Sure. So I started flight simming, for FS4. So that was in the early 90s, and kind of with every iteration of flight simulator, I've had it from FS4 onwards, and I started really just as a freelance freeware developer in the mid 90s. I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember BAO Flight Shop, right? That was an application that I used. Back then, a lot easier. Planes were limited to, I think, less than 1,000 polygons. It was much simpler then. So I kind of got into designing aircraft, and eventually I joined a freeware group. This is over 20 years ago now. I want to say IADG, and I created a Boeing 777 freeware model with them, and that was really my first freeware release, big freeware release. And afterwards, I joined Project Open Sky. I worked on the A330 and the 340 models for Project Open Sky. Then I worked briefly with or I should say a couple of years. I worked for a payware company making the A330, A340 for them. and then kind of when FSX, the demise of FSX really was was very sad, right? So I kind of was out of flight simulation for several years, and then P3D came by, and I was working on for several years an A380 model, and I tried. I could never get it released. It's trying to get it released for P3D, but it just I didn't have the resources, right? It's a tremendously complex aircraft. And by the way, not to go off on a tangent, I'm really happy to fly by wire is making the A380. I'm very excited about that aircraft. But flight simulations have been a passion of mine for 30 years now, I want to say. So it's and it's going to continue to be something that I'm going to be involved in for as long as I can. And it's really it's an amazing privilege to be able to be a developer and to work on a project. And I'll go through the team in a little bit later. Truly, a real talented group of people that I'm working with to bring the 757 to market. But basically, I'm just a flight simulator junkie. I do have a private pilot's license that I got over 10 years ago, but I haven't flown since. I want to get back into real world flying at some point. But aviation has been, it's been a huge passion of mine since I was a little kid, basically.
That's awesome. And Project Open Sky brings back really good memories.
Yes.
Used their aircraft. Yeah, used their aircraft back in the days, which was an amazing team, and what they did for the simulation, community back then was really amazing. And it's funny because you've been in this for a really long time, and I'd love to maybe just really quickly go off script here. What are your thoughts? How far has Microsoft Flight Simulator come today? Because you've developed for a few different types of simulators, and now we have this brand new Microsoft Flight Simulator that got released a couple years ago. Real quick, I'd love to get your takes on it as a developer, as it kind of opened up a whole lot of new possibilities, and with them always improving it, updating the SDK. Is it sky the limit? I'd love to take your take on that real quick.
Yeah, when I first heard about the new, Microsoft Flight Simulator, I was excited. Apprehensive too, because of what happened with FSX, right? That for all of us that's been simming for a long time that had FSX, the feeling that when Microsoft closed down, I think it was the Asus Game Studios. Then it was very for us. It was just very sad. So I was happy that they were coming back, but I'm also a little, obviously apprehensive to make sure that it's going to be a platform that lasts for a long time, and I think it will, based on what Jorg has says. And I listened to the Q&As, and this is a long-term project for them, and that's exciting. So overall, I'm super excited, and it's come a long way, since it released in 2020. Now I believe, was it 2020? It was around September or August 2020.
Yeah.
That it released, and it's come a long way. They fixed a lot of things. Of course, there's still some issues. That's with Endgame. It's going to take a couple of years to kind of go through all the bugs, and there's still things like with air traffic control. For me, I'm an offline air traffic control kind of guy. I'm not a VAT sim or live traffic. I'm hoping that eventually they fix these issues with offline traffic, AI behavior, and ATC, and I know eventually they will. So overall, I'm tremendously optimistic. I'm very excited about it. I think it's overall, the best flight simulator platform. I know there's other platforms out there that we all need to support, of course, in our own way. But I'm really, I'm very excited. I think there's so many possibilities with this sim. So looking ahead long term, yes, I'm very optimistic about Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Yeah, and I agree on that thought there. When Microsoft Flight Simulator got announced, the first thought that came to my head is, oh man, how long is this going to last? Is it going to, go back to the FSX stage where they shut down, just like you said, the studio, right? But I think I agree with you there that Microsoft Flight Simulator is here to stay. They have, I know Jorg had mentioned in the past some really amazing numbers. So it's really exciting. But going back to a little bit more about you is, you've been in the aviation, you've been a kind of aviator geek since a very long time. Why aviation? Where did that come from?
It's been, I guess it's in my blood in the sense of like ever since I was little, my mom would tell me like I would just look up at the sky at airplanes. And even, I'm an immigrant into the United States. When I first came here, we flew into JFK Airport, and I still remember, seeing some of my family that was already in the United States for the first time. But I was more interested in looking at the planes taking off. Right, I was mesmerized by it. So it's just always been it's ingrained in me. It's a passion of mine. And some people may ask, well, why didn't you become an airline pilot? That's a good question. I'm an only child. I think my parents were always kind of against me flying. Just because they're not aviation people. My dad and my mom both are kind of afraid of flying. So they always wonder where did I get this trait that I love airplanes so much. But yeah, it's just been a passion of mine. And I love it, and like I said, one day I hope to get back into real world flying, and I only have a private pilot's license, but I hope to one day get, my instrument rating and multi-engine rating and just kind of build from there. But that's kind of a dream right now. I don't know when I'll be able to get to that.
Yeah, why not? And sky's the limit, right?
Yeah.
So now that you've told us a little bit more about yourself, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about Bluebird Simulation. I know that, again, everyone's here is very excited. Bluebird Simulation, this is going to be your first project that you're going to be releasing. So before we jump and talk about the 757 more specifically, tell us a little bit more about Bluebird Simulation and how it was founded.
Sure. So it was originally back in September 2020. It was the pandemic, the lockdown. I was working from home, and I guess if I were to say, the pandemic's been a very tough time for everybody, right? A lot of things went on. People, lost family members. It was just a tough time, for everyone, including myself. And if there's any one good thing that I can think of that came out of the pandemic for me, it gave me a lot of time to reflect, and we'll get into this a little later too. This is, I work in the corporate world as a full-time job, to pay my bills and everything, but I don't like the full-time job that I do. It's in finance. It's not something that I enjoy. So it gave me a lot of time to reflect. So I sat down and I contacted some of the people that I've known over the years, my flight simulation time. First being Eric and Jake. Both were people that I'd worked with in the past. And I kind of reached out to them and said, hey, I want to start a project, which ironically was not the 757 at first, kind of a unknown fact. It wasn't the first project that we had kind of set on doing, but I reached out to them and I said, hey, are you guys interested in working for a project? My MSFS had just gotten released, so I asked them, and they said, sure, yeah, but what do you want to do, and let's try to get some ideas rolling. And originally, our first project we're kind of thinking of doing was an A380. Believe it or not, I'm a huge fan of the A380. I've been making one for many years. It's still sitting on my hard drive. But originally, one of the challenges was with a new simulator platform is understanding all the nuances. What is it going to take to develop an aircraft, and specifically the programming, right? With any project, the systems programming and all that is the most complex part of a project. So, after kind of going back and forth for a couple of months, we decided, the A380 is probably not the best first project to have. It's very complex. And we were kind of going through, okay, who else do we need to bring onto the team? And then the fourth member of the team is Romain. He's an airline pilot, not a 757 pilot, but he's, we brought him in to help with the flight dynamics aspect. So the original team was myself, Eric was a programmer, Jake was doing virtual cockpit textures, and Romain, who's doing the flight dynamics. Again, it's all a learning experience for us, getting through all the little nuances and intricacies of the new simulator platform. It wasn't until, believe it or not, June of 2021, that we had said, okay, we're going to work on a 757, and we started putting together what we need to do to get this project rolling. And we kind of started obviously with the model. At that time, Eric, who's the programmer, was kind of going through again the process of how do we get how do we program and get it compiled into the simulator, because again it's all new. It's not, he has experience with various languages: C++, JavaScript, HTML, XML. But what do we need to do specifically to get the the gauges into the sim? So it was all a trial and error. So from there, the team kind of expanded, and I'll kind of go through all the names, including myself. We have Eric, Jake, Romain, Dave, Tony, Mitch, O'Neill, and Omar. Those are all the people that are involved, whether it's on the development team, being an advisor, testing, marketing. We have a pretty, I think, talented team right now. But yeah, it all started back in September 2020 with just an idea and getting some people together that I've worked with in the past, and then kind of getting the ball rolling, and choosing really the 757 as our first official project.
Okay. So it seems like you have a really good group of team members and quite a bit of actual team members. Do you think your A380 will ever come to light one day? Or, knowing that fly-by-wire is making them, even though it's a freeware, they're gonna, their previews seems like it's gonna be an excellent plane. Is that 380 will ever come to light, or?
I've talked with some people at fly-by-wire. I would love to one day release it as a freeware project, just to get the model out, maybe merge it with the fly-by-wire systems, and cockpit. But right now, there's no plans for that because
Yeah.
that's on the back burner. We've got to get the 7.5 and some future projects released. But yeah, I would love to do that as kind of a thank you to the community to kind of get that released as a freeware project. We would never make an A380 payware project, only because it doesn't make sense. I don't think for any company, given what fly-by-wire is doing, it would just not make any sense to try to make a payware A380. Unless you're making it for another platform, if you want to do export P3D. But yeah, for MFS, that's kind of in the back of my mind. I've thought about it, but it's a very complex plane. Even just the model itself, the exterior model, it's just so many pieces to it. So we'll see. Maybe in a couple of years, but no promises on that.
Yeah. Okay. So going back, you were saying that you work in a corporate job. So is this a full-time project for you, mostly at night, on the weekends, and you still currently have your corporate job? What does that look like today?
So this is one of the things. Like, if I were to put in my hours on a weekly basis, I'm working anywhere between 70 to 90 hours a week, between that job and Bluebird. The hope is one day to make Bluebird a full-time venture, so that I can just concentrate on what I'm passionate about, right? And for me, Flight Simulator is a passion of mine. I'm not doing this, for the money. I want to be able to make a living out of it, and of course, the people that are on my team, I hope that they can make a living out of it. But it's truly a passion for us, that we want to give a great product to the community that people actually enjoy. So that's my hope, one day to make this a full-time venture. Right now, I just have to support it with my full-time job.
Yeah. And it's great to have that angle. It's passion first, and then kind of the income second, because that's usually when the projects that gets released are the best, right? Because it's really kind of that passion put first versus trying to force something out and kind of putting something out because you need income to support the team or to support yourself. So love that you guys are putting kind of the passion first. It might not be easy, right? Because I have a full-time job as well. I do iFlySimX here and there on the side, but you do it out of passion. So that's great to see.
Yes.
So I know that we covered a little bit about kind of Bluebird simulations, how it was founded, who else is working with you on this project. Looks like you have a really nice, tight team there. So the next question I wanted to ask you is, why the 757?
So a couple reasons. At the time, we were really thinking about, okay, so who else is making what? What projects did we know were currently in development? That's kind of what we looked at. And at that time, we knew about the A380. With some of the payware groups making the 737, A320, and I know there was other projects as well. So that was kind of one of the considerations. The other considerations, okay, well, what plane do we really like that we want to do that we think is also popular? And we kind of, most of us pretty much set on the 757. It's a gorgeous looking airplane, right? For the time, it's amazing. Like, the plane came out in 1982. I think it was just a beautiful design, a very timeless design. And I know it's wishful thinking. I hope Boeing brings it back, right? It would be so great for them to bring back the 757. I was never a 737 fan, and not to bust on any 737 fan people here. I don't think the 737 is a particularly good looking aircraft. I never had any interest in it. So it was really, I remember when Boeing announced that they were going to take the 757 out of production back in 2005. I remember this, and I was like, why? It's such an awesome aircraft. It can do a lot, right? It has the capability to it's long range, the payload of the plane, power. It's very capable, but unfortunately, I guess the airlines didn't agree, and it went out of production. But we just think it's a fantastic airplane, and really, just a great looking aircraft. And we look at it, that was really the major thing. Like, we looked at it, it's just such a beautiful plane, and it was just a no brainer at that time. Like, all right, we're going to do the 757, and we did it with the risk, knowing that there's probably going to be other devs that try to make a 757, and whether or not that's true or not right now, I don't know. But it's that at this point, that's not going to influence us. With going forward, we're gonna hammer through with this project and just make it the best. Our hope is just to make it the best 757 for MSFS.
Wouldn't that be amazing if Boeing did bring the 757 back and called it the 757X or something? I agree with you. I don't personally find the 737 attractive. But the 757, again, like I was mentioning earlier, it has something special. It's long, it's narrow, it's powerful. It's very unique when you look at a 757 compared to every other airplanes. And I think there's still, FedEx still flies them a lot. I think UPS as well. Delta might still have some. I know Delta back in 2018 had 127 of them. I'm not sure how many they have left today.
They still fly, I believe, over 100. Actually, some of our contacts, we have, mechanics and engineers. So yeah, they still fly, I think, over 100 757s. I can double check that. But
wow.
Yeah, they're a huge. United as well. I want to be careful with mentioning airline names here, but they're making an investment in their 757s, which is great to know. I was actually, again, not to go off on a tangent, but when I went out to see the 767s in person to take pictures, they had two United 757-300 in the hangar. I was not allowed to take any pictures of the planes, unfortunately, but I got to go in the cabin, kind of check out the plane, and it's good to see that they're putting the money in and the investments in the 757, so that we'll see them flying for many years to come. So that's exciting to know.
Really? I did not know that this particular airline is kind of putting money into uplifting and kind of keeping the 757 going. So that's really good to hear. So with the 757 that you guys are developing, this question is kind of for you and the team. What is your main goal for this aircraft?
Yeah, so when I originally announced the project, I know I kind of said mid-level, right, complexity, and I kind of walked that back a little bit because it can mean a lot things, right? So our goal, when I think of what's our mission for this project, is to make it an immersive and affordable experience for all simmers, no matter what your experience level is. And this brings up, of course, the conversation of, is it going to be, quote unquote, study level and all the different things. And study level is not really a term that I like to use because it can mean so many different things. So I mentioned originally in the video that I made last month that we're aiming for realistic normal operations with this initial release. But we're also working on other things like the flight dynamics is very important to us to make sure that this plane flies correctly. And being totally transparent, flight dynamics is going to be something that we're going to continuously improve, right? Because the simulator, MSFS team, Asobo, they're always making enhancements to different flight dynamics parameters. But we're doing our best with the input from our pilots to make sure that it flies as accurately as we can make it with the simulator limitations. And by that, I mean, we're not using any external modules. And I'm mentioning this for the first time, kind of my philosophy that I want to use the sim parameters to the best that we can, so we don't have to use any external modules to kind of, finagle the value here and there. So we're really pushing to make it fly as realistically as we can within the simulation parameters. And we have, again, we have two 757 pilots plus about a half a dozen other 757 pilots that are on standby to beta test it when it gets to that point. So we really want to take their input and make sure that this plane handles and flies, as accurately as we can get it. And that's going to be kind of a continuous thing, right? As the plane evolves, as the simulator evolves, something that we're going to continue to look into. Like, we're not going to be done with the 757 when we release it. We're going to be, even when we work on other projects, we're going to go back and look at the 757. What can we enhance? What can we make better? And give those enhancements as free updates to the to the people that purchase the base package. So our goal, again, is to make a truly immersive experience with the 757 that's realistic and affordable.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That especially once the aircraft is released, that you're going to keep kind of chipping at it and improving it and just keep updating it, and because obviously there's always so many things that you could improve, and then you're going to go back and say, well, you know what, we could do this better, let me work on this a little bit. So that's awesome that it's just going to continuously be kind of worked on and not just kind of, okay, it's done, let's work on another project and focus on that project.
Exactly.
100%. So I know you touched on the systems a little bit and kind of sturdy level, and personally, just like you, I don't like that term because I think that sets boundaries and kind of maybe, it's, what does it mean to everybody? So I'm not a big fan of that term, but tell us a little bit more, if you can, how in depth are the systems going to be? Is there anything you can share about kind of that?
I'll do my best to give some information on it, and I because there's things we're still working on, so I don't want to say that it's finished or we're going to have it, but our main focus was the flight management system, which we're still working on, right? To have basically a fully functional flight management system. That's our core focus, right? So you're talking about the LNAV, VNAV, the SID star, and all those components that go into flight management system. It's important that we get that developed, and we're 90% there. Still working on things with the flight management system. The other thing I can mention is the electrical system. We're going to be basically rewriting the electrical system from scratch, and so to make it customized for the 757. We haven't gotten there yet. We're going to do that starting next month. So we're going to basically rewrite the whole electrical system to make it accurate for the 757. Now, how deep that's going to go, I can't tell you yet, but we're going to work on it. And again, that's going to be one of the things that's going to get continuously improved. Other systems that we're working on, for example, the brake temperature monitoring system. Not all 757s have this feature. Apparently, it was an option. Some of the older 757s didn't have it, and some even the newer ones in the production line didn't have it. It's just an option. But we're gonna try to collect some data. We have thousands of pages of documents, right? And then we have real world data we're going to collect from pilots to kind of simulate like the brake temperature monitoring system. The hydraulic system, for the initial release, it's going to be basic in the sense that you're going to have your three main systems. You're going to have your engine-driven pumps and your electric pumps. So like when you start the APU, the APU is going to be able to run the electric pumps so that way you can move your control surfaces when you have the APU on, and then you can turn on the engines that'll drive the engine-driven pumps. That's pretty much as complex as we're going to go for the initial release with the hydraulic system. We're not going to go, there's some reserve tanks that we're not going to model yet. Keyword there is yet. That'll be at a future release. What else? We're going to work on the cabin altitude, cabin temperature systems that we're going to work on, kind of simulating those. Having a decent simulation of those. Are we going to be able to get it down to the nitty gritty? I don't know yet. With one of the things I'm hoping for is kind of coming up with a chart of different. For example, if you're selecting the flight deck temperature or the forward cabin temperature, based on what the ambient temperature is outside, and what the temperature you want to set on the inside, how long will it take for the temperature to change? That's something we're going to look at. How accurate it's going to be, I can't guarantee it's going to be within within a minute of the actual plane, but we're going to just work on making it something that's reasonable, so that if you just turn the knob, you say you want to set it from 70 degrees Fahrenheit to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, it's not going to just change instantaneously, right? So it's going to take some time to change. So there's a couple of things, and I know I'm probably missing a couple of other systems that we're going to be implementing, but we're going to have a good foundation to build upon. That's really our goal here for the passenger version, is to have a good foundation of systems that we're going to build upon for the cargo variant. That's going to be an expansion package. All I can say right now, I'll probably have a more in-depth description and list in several months from now. But really, that's all I can say right now.
No, and that's plenty. So safe to say that fully functioning VNAV for release. Is that right?
Yes. That's going to be, we're going to have fully functional VNAV and LNAV before release. For release, yes, absolutely.
Okay,
that's crucial.
I know that's a lot of it's crucial to a lot of flight simmers. Every time there's a new aircraft that comes out, we've seen some developers kind of release versions a little early just to help with the income, but the airplane is kind of pretty plain and doesn't have a whole lot of things modeled or featured yet. So that's good that you guys are looking to release a really strong foundation to then again, like you said, just build on top of it and keep improving it with sky the limit in mind as well. Yes. So you touched on it a little bit, but let's talk about the variants, because I know that's questions that I got in DMs and in the forums and the chat. What variant will be available at release, and then what variants, whether it's singular or plural, will you be potentially working on, if you can say, in the future, as kind of like a DLC or an add-on package?
Sure. So for our initial release, right? So we're going to look at both the 200 and the 300 with the Pratt & Whitney and the Rolls-Royce, the E4 series of the RB211, so the newer Rolls-Royce RB211 engines, both the non-winglet and the winglet. So I forget the math there. I think that's 8 different variants, if I think about it correctly. But we're going to have those variants. So again, the 200, 300 with the Pratt & Whitney, the Rolls-Royce E4 series engines, and the winglet and non-winglet versions. If you kind of dice it up
at release,
at release, that's our
wow.
Aim.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's ambitious, but we're going to do it. There's also different door configurations. We're going to try to make sure we have. Can't promise this yet, but like the 200 for whatever reason, Boeing might do multiple door configurations. I know that to cater to the airlines, but the 757-200 has two-door configurations with the overwing exits, or you have the emergency exit that's behind the wing. I guess they call it the L and R3 doors. So we're going to do both of those versions. Now, whether those versions will be available on a release, I don't know yet, but we're going to have them. So it might just come as an add-on, a free add-on that we do later. And this is just for the 200 version, because all 757-300s have one variation of the doors, thank goodness. So that makes the 300 a little easier to make, so we don't have to worry about multiple door variants. That's our goal, to have all those variants available on release. And then as far as
before we talk about the
go ahead.
Yeah, before we talk about the future, I'm just impressed. I'm just wowed by the fact that so many variants are going to be available at release. Because again, most of the time with developers, you only see one variant. It's just, let's kind of get the first variant out and then kind of build on top of that. But having about 8 variants out on release is absolutely stunning. So kudos to you and the team, because that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's absolutely that's kind of how we're going to bring the value to the project, right? We're going to give you multiple variants, for one price.
All right. So now, what's after kind of the release? What variants could we potentially expect that you're comfortable talking about?
So yeah,
I know you mentioned cargo.
Yes, the cargo version definitely. So both the pilots that are advisors and helping out on the testing and everything on the project, they're both cargo pilots. And I know I've gotten a lot of requests. Are you guys going to be doing cargo? Are we going to be doing cargo variant? And yes, absolutely. So once the 7.5 passengers released, the core focus, even though we announced another project, but the core focus is going to be going on to the freighter version of the 7.5, and that version, again, I don't want to talk about it too much, because we have planned improvements and enhancements that we're going to make for the cargo version that's going to work its way back into the passenger version as enhancements. And just to clarify, so the cargo version will be a paid expansion package, right? So you buy base package, passenger, and then the cargo version will be an expansion to that. But let's say you don't want to buy the cargo version, you just want the passenger version. The enhancements that we make to the cargo version will be available as a free update for those that buy the passenger version. So I just want to make sure that's something I clarify. Yes, because again, we're kind of counting it as improving the project, and as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be making improvements and enhancements, and we're going to give those as free updates to the the folks that buy the base passenger. And as far as a lot of people ask me about the different flight deck variations, right? So this initial release for passengers is going to have the CRT displays, right? Basically, and there's so many different combinations. With the CRT displays, you have 757s that have the digital MCP indicators, and same thing on the radio panels. Some of them have the analog, some of them the digital. We're kind of going with combo, right? So we have the CRT screens with the analog MCP numbers, and then we have kind of like digital radio panel. So it's kind of a mix and match, and it's impossible to get all the combinations. But for the initial release, that's what we're going to have, and then we will work on getting the flat panel. Was it the FPS? I think the flat panel display system that basically updates the primary and the navigation displays to LCD displays. That's a lot of cargo. I think mainly the cargo carriers like FedEx and UPS have that. Some other cargo carriers and some airlines have that as well, with just the primary display and the navigation display as LCD, but the ECAS displays, the engine displays, are still the CRT displays. So that will be a version of the flight deck that we will include with the cargo variant, and then again, that will work its way back into the passenger variant as well. I think I know Iceland Air has the 757s with the newer displays. I'm not aware of any other airlines, even Delta and United, as far as I know, still use the CRT displays in their flight decks, the old school CRT displays. But that's basically, in terms of variants, what we're going to focus on. I know I've got some questions of some other 757 variants, whether it's I think the Honeywell one with the engine pylon and some other variants of the 75. I don't think we're going to be doing that. And I forget the designation also, the one that the president sometimes flies on, the 757, which ironically 2 weeks ago flew right over my house at about 2,000 feet. And I wish I had my camera. I would have taken a picture of it.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's not a photo op I would probably ever get again, but I wish I could run and get the camera. But yeah, not to go off on a tangent, but yeah, we're not going to really do any of those variants planned, at least. We'll see. Nothing. I won't say no to anything yet. We'll see how things go, because every variant that we make obviously takes time, and I don't want to promise anything to anyone. But so to summarize, we've got the passenger version and the cargo version as an expansion. Those are the main variants that we're going to do for the 75.
Great. Awesome. That's great. Now, I know that we're slowly coming to time here, so I want to ask you a couple of questions. Then we'll take a couple of questions from the forums or the live chat. And then we do have a couple screenshots that I'm going to be sharing with you guys just to quickly talk about them. So we still have a few things to talk about and 18 minutes left. But just two more questions on my end that I wanted to ask you is, one of the questions that flight simmers always want to know is release. When is it going to be released? Do you have a rough idea, a year, maybe, and I don't want to go into, specific day, month, or anything, but is there anything that you could potentially share with us about the 757 being released? And again, anything that, I will say this for Sherwin, but anything that he says is, just a prediction and it's not a hard set and stone release date, and people should take this with a grain of salt. But is there any type of idea that you could potentially give us on the release date for the 757?
Sure. And let me make a disclaimer. I know it's extremely risky trying to predict a release time frame. And I know I kind of took a risk by saying that, right? When we started the project back in June of 2021, kind of gave ourselves a timeline of 18 to 24 months, which obviously is not going to happen, right? So if you think about 24 months, it would be June. I can tell you it won't be released by June of this year. So we're kind of aiming for the tail end of this year. However, one thing I want to make clear is, things can change, right? So if we're coming up towards the end of the year and we're still not ready and it's not to our standard yet for release, I'm going to be upfront with the community and say, hey, we might have to delay it. I'm not saying that it is going to get delayed right now. I'm not saying that at all. But I also realize, that I've taken a tremendous risk in saying that, giving a kind of a time frame. But as of right now, our goal is we're really pushing hard to get this released probably by Q4 of this year. That's the best I can kind of estimate that I can give right now. But and I should have probably mentioned this, earlier, is that things can change. If a bug comes up or something happens that we need to fix, we're not going to try to rush this. I want to make sure, this is going to be our first project, and as I've told the team, we don't get a second chance to make a first impression, right? So I want to make sure
exactly
that we get this to the point, to our standard that we have internally that we've kind of decided upon. And once it gets to that standard, then we're going to be happy to release it. I can say we're on track right now, but again, things change in the future. I can't predict 6, 7, 8 months from now what's going to happen. So that's why I understand that I've taken a risk, and sometimes you set a release target, and if you don't meet it, I know that's going to upset people. And the last thing I want to do is upset the community in any way. My whole focus and kind of strategy when I started this company is to be as open and upfront with the community as I can. I do not like hype. I don't like making false promises. This is not just some sort of cash grab for me. Absolutely not. This is a passion project for all of us, and we want to make as many people as we can happy with it. So once it gets to that point
Yeah.
where we're happy and we're comfortable with saying, okay, it's at the level we want, we'll release it. And right now, I'm hoping it's
Right.
later on in the year. But if we have to push back,
Mhm.
I'll be totally transparent with the community and let them know.
Yeah. So hopefully for Christmas, December 24th, for those of you that celebrate Christmas, if any of you do. But yeah, I mean, I think you brought up a good thing there is communication is key, right? Oftentimes I do see developers just not being really too communicative. And, I feel like for flight simmers, it's important for them to kind of know, even though there's not a whole lot going on, or just to communicate and being transparent. I think is key today. And it's also great that, hey, if if you have some bugs come up or things like that, let's not rush this thing and let's just iron everything out and make sure it's perfect or as close to perfect as possible before we release it. So
Yes.
I love that. The last question I quickly want to talk about, because I have about 14 minutes left. Is there anything that you could share about the price point? I know that, again, this is a sensitive question. You might have a rough idea, but is there anything that you could potentially, give us about the price point? Again, I'm not asking for an exact price point, but just kind of a rough idea, maybe a range, anything.
Sure. So kind of brings up something that I forgot to mention in the past, in the last few questions you asked. One of the other people or groups I want to thank is also Just Flight. So they've been really, I approached them back in September 2020 when I reached out to a couple of people. I also reached out to Just Flight because I knew that we would need their support to make this 757 happen. So they've been tremendously helpful. I mean, most of the development work has been Bluebird, but to get us over that finish line, we're going to need Just Flight, right? Without them, it wouldn't be possible. So I want to make sure I say that. Now, to your point about pricing, ultimately it's going to be Just Flight that determines what the pricing is. But obviously, I'm going to give them input on what I believe this should be priced at. So we haven't had that conversation yet. It'll happen, in the months to come. But I've been very tight-lipped about pricing for a reason, because I don't want to make any promises or say something and it doesn't happen. So believe me, once as soon as I have like some concrete, information on what the pricing or price range will be, I'll share that. Right now, I don't have any information on that. I have a range in my mind, which I'm going to, again, not say anything because I don't want to make any promises or any misinformation to go out there. So yeah, that's basically all I can say on pricing. I don't have that information yet, but it's something I will definitely let the community know as soon as we have some information on it.
So is it safe to say that we can say a range between $5 and $500, just to be,
Yeah, I was going to say $5 and $100, right? You can you can say between five or yeah, but yeah, it's that's really all I can say.
That's Yeah, that's a safe bet. Well, no, that's okay. And again, it's still early on in a way, even though you've been working on this for almost 2 years. It's still too early to completely understand that. It's still a bit too early to talk about pricing. But again, people ask, people want to know. These are two. Anytime there's a new project in development for Flight Simulator, it's like, when is the release dates? What variants, if there's going to be any variants, and what's kind of the price that we're looking at. So that's great. Thanks for sharing that. So I know that we have about 10 minutes. So I'm going to take a look at some of the questions. If we could maybe, and I'm going to take a look at some of the questions in the forums just to maybe see if there's any good ones that we could quickly answer. Then I want to spend the maybe last 5 minutes going over some exclusive screenshots that you sent over to me.
Sure.
Let me take a look at this. Will the 757 have an electronic flight bag?
Yes, that's one of the features that it's core to again, that I should mention this too, the EFB. We got to have an EFB, I guess. It's just kind of in the day and age, it's kind of understood that people expect it. So we're going to have an EFB, and most likely it's going to be the EFB that Just Flight is using. You know, I talked to them, and they have no issues with integrating their EFB into the 757. So that, yes, 100%. I mean, we have to have an EFB. There's no way that I would release this plane without an EFB. I think that would disappoint a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, were the where did it go? Someone asked, will the 757 be optimized for low-end graphics cards, and what is kind of performance going to look like?
So that's one of the amazing things, like with MSFS, right? Is how they're able to optimize the performance. So one of our guys is actually flying the plane on a laptop. I think it's not a new laptop. It's a couple years old. It's a 1080 Ti, you know, and they're getting 25 frames on the with the 757 on a 1080 Ti laptop, right? So if you're running a desktop with I guess a 2000 series RTX card, or even if you're running a 3000 series RTX card, you'll have no issues running the 7.5. I will say this, like the new virtual cockpit that we're making. Again, I'm not previewing that until I gave you an exclusive picture, but it's at night, so you guys can't see the textures or any of the shapes or anything. But the new virtual cockpit, just to give you an idea, has over 70 texture sets. The old one had just 20, right? So we've really went, you know, just to a different level with the new cockpit to make it just much better. I don't even want to show the old cockpit anymore in any of the videos, because I just can't even look at it when I compare it to the new cockpit, right? So the cockpit you guys have been seeing on the YouTube videos, you know, that's the old cockpit. New cockpit is so much better, just much better. That's all I can say right now. But we're going to optimize it for performance in the sense that you know, to make sure that you know, you'll have a choice between whether you want to use 4K textures or if you want to use 2K textures. Even with 2K textures, this cockpit looks far better than the existing cockpit that I've been showing, right, pictures of and videos. Only because there's so many more texture sets now, and it just looks superior. So to answer the question, you know, you can run this on a lower end PC or a laptop, and you're not going to be able to run it on Ultra, obviously, on a laptop or a lower end PC. If you have everything set on Ultra, that's going to give some issues with the VRAM. But you can definitely run this if you have it on medium or high settings on a, let's say, a mid-range PC. You should have no problems running it.
Okay. Well, thanks for the tease about the new virtual cockpit. Really looking forward to seeing it. We'll take one last questions, because then I do want to go over some of the screenshots you sent. Last questions I'm going to take, because we kind of answered some of them earlier on. Somebody asked, will there be an ADI version with no speed tape? Not sure if you're able to answer that or not.
I've had people ask me that. We're not, just for sake of simplicity, you know, too much complexity, we're not going to have the non-speed tape ADI, although there's still airlines that fly that version. I can ask. I don't want to make any promises. I'll ask my programmer and see if there's a way to implement it, maybe have it as an option. I don't know that. I'm not right now. The answer is no, and maybe we'll surprise you and have that, but it's not on our priority list. Let's put it that way. We just have the ADI with the speed tape version. That's what we have right now. But could it change? I don't know.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, perfect. Well, that's the kind of the community questions we have. We have some more, but obviously we're running out of time. So I want to spend the last few minutes sharing my screen and going over some of the screenshots you shared with me. So
even if we go over a few minutes, that's fine. You know, that's
okay.
No
Perfect. So this is the first screenshot you sent me. We have 4 screenshots to go over, but you know, tell us a little bit more about this beautiful nose of this beautiful detailed nose of this 757.
Sure, and you know, and Dave, he's our exterior texture guy, phenomenal. He is he's just a talent when it comes to exterior textures. This is actually a few weeks old, so he's gone through and actually added more enhancements and detail to this. But so you can kind of look at the weathering that he's done on the nose, all of the individual screws that he's put on the cockpit windows, around the windshield wipers, just the color balance in general. He's got a natural talent with just understanding the color balance, getting it to look correct, and looking realistic. And again, this is just an early picture. The finished fuselage is going to look phenomenal. It'll be up there with anything else that you guys have seen in the community. Just phenomenal. That's really all I can say. But this is an early picture,
and
right?
it still looks amazing. So kind of same thing with the virtual cockpit that you've improved from the earlier pictures that you've seen. It already looked great. So can't wait to see some updated pictures. But let's go to the next one. And this is we're going to be talking a little bit about the speed brakes here a little bit. So want to tell us? I have two pictures.
Sure. Sure. And disclaimer. So these textures that you see on the wing are all old textures that I made. So these are not the textures that are going to be on the plane. I want to make sure I make that very clear, because I know one person, at least on the comments somewhere, will probably say the textures look like crap, and they do, because I made those textures and they look terrible, right? So we haven't gotten to the wings yet in terms of texturing. But what I want to show here is the spoilers. So we just recently, we programmed in the spoiler animations. So the 757 has various animations for the spoiler, right? If you are just testing out the control surfaces on the ground, all the spoilers are going to come up and down with each other because you're doing a control surface test. The picture that you're seeing here is during a landing where you have the spoilers armed. The 757 and I don't know the exact reason behind this, but the number 2 and 3 and 10 and 11 spoilers have a 1 second delay when they're deploying. So you can see here, the plane is landed, all the other spoilers deployed, the number 2 and 3 spoilers, and the way that we count is all the way from the left of the 757 to the right. So the leftmost spoiler is number 1, and it has a total of 12 spoilers. So you can see the 2 and 3 spoilers are down, and then 1 second later, those spoilers will come up to deploy with the rest of the spoilers. And then when you're using if you are using the air brakes, I didn't take pictures of this, but if you're in the air, the number 4 spoiler, so it's number 4, and I forget what number it is on the other side. That when you're in the air, that spoiler will remain down. That is only a ground spoiler. So that's been implemented so that when you're using either air brakes or if using the spoiler-ons, that spoiler will remain down. The other spoilers have different deflection limits based on whether you're using it as spoiler-ons or as air brakes. So that's all been implemented. And again, I haven't used any screenshots of in the air. We'll probably make a video at some point just to kind of highlight that. But that's just like a little update I wanted to share on the project. That just kind of a little thing that we wanted to implement. How many people will ever notice this? I don't know. Most of the time, obviously, you're spending the time in the flight deck flying. You may not notice the spoilers, but that's one of the little details that we wanted to add to the spoilers, just to get a little bit more realism.
Yeah, and it's been a few years that I haven't flown the 757 since back to P3D days, and it's not something that I recall remembering. So again, you guys, it shows the amount of details that you are putting into this, because again, I'm sure that not a whole lot of people knew about this, about the spoilers and the brakes, the air brakes. So very, again, amazing to see that you are putting in the work. And honestly, the textures are not that bad. It could be a lot worse. Those temporary textures.
They're temporary. Yeah, they're temporary. You could see the marks on the back of the spoilers. That's because, I went through and I redid a lot of the spoilers. We have get them remapped. So that's why it's showing all those weird circles and stuff on there. But this is all going to get remapped and retextured. Dave is going to texture it using his extremely high standards of quality. So, I can't wait, when the wings are textured to be able to showcase that to the public.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the last screenshot. And this is the screenshot of the virtual cockpit at night. Tell us more.
So I purposely took this completely dark because this is the new VC, but you guys can't see any of the textures, and I did that on purpose. Really, what I want to highlight here is that we have decoupled the first officer and captain screens so they work independently from each other. So the navigation display, you have your various modes and buttons that you can press to show different indications on the navigation display. Those are completely independent on the first officer and captain, and also the flight management FMC screens are independent, so you can go through the screens, the various menus independently from the first officer and the captain. One thing we had from the beginning, there's over 20 dimmers. I want to say 22 or 23 dimmer switches that we have the 757 that we've modeled, all working independently. So you have independent dimmers for the captain and the first officer side for the lighting, and the different screens. There's so many that you have the map lights and what is it? I forget the little lights that are on the side by the seat. All these different lights that we have modeled, but mainly a screenshot for the just to showcase that we have the displays decoupled so you can operate independently. There was one last screenshot. I know you probably were running low on time, of the virtual cabin. I want to give a quick shout out, our O'Neill, who he's the guy that's making our future project, the 767, but I kind of pulled him off that for now to help me with the virtual cabin. This guy's the most talented model designer that I've ever met, better than myself, and I hold myself to a high standard. This guy is just truly phenomenal. He uses both Blender and 3ds Max. I know I've gotten some questions what applications we're using. I only use 3ds. I don't know how to use Blender, but Blender is also a tremendously powerful tool. And O'Neill uses both of these tools and has helped out certain aspects of the 757, which includes the virtual cabin.
Is that it, Sherwin?
This is it. Yeah,
I just pulled it up, the virtual cabin. Yeah.
This is one screenshot. Still work in progress, of course. But yeah, he's done a phenomenal job. He's so happy to have him on the team. And I won't talk about the 767. That's not something that we'll really talk about yet. But when the time comes, I think that the community will be blown away by his modeling. That's all I got to say. Just completely blown away. He's amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah, 767. That will be time. For future topic. Yes, but that's also exciting. That's another project that you're going to be working. Has real quick, if you don't mind me asking, has work started at all on it, or is it just kind of something that you want to do as the next project?
Work has started on the model of it. That's really, and again, that's independent from the 757 production. Like like I said, I pulled O'Neill from the 767 to work on the cabin. So yeah, it's work has started on it, but it's not full speed ahead on the 76 right now. The core focus is on 757, the passenger and the cargo variant. But I've seen previews and screenshots of the model of the 767 model. I've tested it out in the sim, and it just looks amazing. That's all I can say right now. So.
That's amazing. Yeah, because I know I got some questions around the 767 for our interview today, but I was like, today we're just going to focus on the 757.
Yes.
One thing at a time.
Sure.
That's great. Well, we're a little past over time, but I think this is going to wrap it up. Sherwin, I'm going to give you the floor just to say any closing statements or anything, but thank you so much for doing this. I'm really excited. It seems like you guys have a really great tight team. You seem like a really nice developer, and we're just excited to see the 757 or have it in our sims at home. But is there any kind of last closing statements that you want to mention, or anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Sure, sure. First of all, thank you again for having me on. And I want to thank the community. It's always great to see the support and the criticism. I'm always open to dialogue and criticism of the project. And I know that I can't please everybody, but I'm going to do my hardest to please as many simmers as I can with this project. That's really a goal for me. And like I said, it's a passion project. My wife sometimes has to pull me away from the computer because I spend so much time on this. I could literally spend all day just doing development. I don't take that many vacations. But again, I really want to thank the community. Without them, it wouldn't be possible, right? Without the support and all of the comments. So it really means a lot. It really means a lot, and that's really I want everybody to know that I really appreciate all of the support.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks again, Sherwin. Guys, if you don't follow Bluebird Simulations, go. They're on Facebook. They're on YouTube. I know that Sherwin uploads videos here and there. Just Flights also shares kind of development progress and little blogs about Bluebird Simulations and the 757 on their progress. So be sure to give them a follow. And I will be uploading this interview to YouTube within the next few days, and with the screenshots as well. But guys, everybody who came out today, we had quite a bit of people that jumped in and out. So thank you so much for everybody that showed up. If there's any other developers that you want me to set up an interview with, let me know, because this is just kind of our first one that I'm doing on Discord. Did a little different formats in the past. So looking forward to any of your feedback. And again, if you have any additional questions for the 757, put them in. Bluebird, or such as Sherwin, is in the Discord, and I'm sure he keeps an eye on our feedback and everything. So again, thank you so much, guys. Have a great Sunday, great rest of your day. Sherwin, again, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And like I mentioned to you, if there's anything I can ever do to help you and the team, please let me know. And yeah, so thanks again, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. Bye, Sherwin. Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.